Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Solo to Entrepreneur podcast show. You are with me, Lorraine Choi, and I'm the host. Today, we are lucky and really privileged to have one of my very good friends, Josh, all the way from Philippines. So, welcome, Josh.
Hey, Lorraine, thank you so much for having me here. So excited to add value to your community and to everyone who's listening and watching wherever you guys are at.
Absolutely. It's been a while since we met up. But the thing is, why I wanted you on is because I want to touch base in terms of your journey through starting up your company from the very start as a
Yeah.
solopreneur, as you say.
Yeah. Wow, that's exciting. Very exciting indeed. I think that's the conversation's gonna be dependent on what questions you're gonna be
I
asking me.
know. So I know you've come through a very journey. And the thing is, like, how we met was also quite random. So we won't go into detail, but how we met was like we haven't even actually met
Met
face
in
like
person.
met in person. So it's great that we've kept in touch for so many years. It's what, 2 years, 3 years, 3 years?
I think so. Feels like forever.
It feels like forever. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I guess, like, in terms of starting your business, like what got you, or what had you, start a business to begin with? Like, what gave you that nudge to do something different comparatively to all the norm that we are used to?
Right, right. I think it's pretty similar with everyone who wants to start a business. I know everyone has different stories, but one of my main, if not my main reason at that time when I started the business was really I wanted to do something that was going to give me more income compared to what I was getting, right? I think money is a great motivator at the very beginning of an entrepreneur's life, right? The stage where the person's going to be, because I think we wouldn't be stepping outside of our comfort zones if it didn't give us a certain idea of what pleasure we can get from it, which in this case was more income, right?
Absolutely.
Uh,
But you
and,
started
and
pretty young, though.
I started at 18 years old,
Mm.
but I was working and studying at the same time, and I was juggling school and work, and I felt like, hey, you know what? It shouldn't be like this forever. I felt like I was destined to do something else, and I felt like I could earn more by doing something that I loved even more, right? And but to answer that question, it started with a simple motivation of me just wanting to do more and have more. So I mean, I think if people tell you, "Oh, you know what? I started my business because I wanted to change the world," um, I don't think it starts like that. Like I think most people are like, "Hey, I want to start my business because I want to. We are so bought into the idea of getting freedom, whether that's freedom in choices, freedom in your finance, or freedom in doing the things that you love. But I think it starts that way. It starts with us understanding that we want more. So I wanted more. And that's why I began exploring other opportunities outside of the workplace that I was at.
So when
So
you
I,
decided that you wanted that freedom, did
yeah,
you already know what you wanted to do, or you were just figuring it out on that journey towards finding that freedom?
oh, that's a good question. Because here's how it started. Like I applied for a job where it was actually a sales job, and I was supposed to. It was customer service and sales, and I was handling customers who were very much irate and who were always complaining about their bills, and that's where I kind of developed my desire to speak to people even more. I've always been a talker and I've always been a communicator, and I just enjoyed seeing people get transformed. So from a person who was really, really mad calling, and then I get to convert that into a customer who says thank you, that for me was very exciting. So I did that job. I was in a customer service, I was a CSR, and I was in a sales job for 6 months straight. But then I saw an opportunity to level up and get up in the corporate ladder. So from being just a CSR at that time, I got promoted as the youngest trainer in the company at 18 years old, where I was training people 2 times, 3 times my age. And for me, it was a major flex, but at the same time, it was a curse because people were all looking at me and they were thinking, how did he get there? He's not supposed to be there. He's just new. He's just been with us for 6 months. Why should we trust him to train us?
That's the
But
same
from
in
that,
that's the same in the teaching industry where I look young and all these parents like, you don't know anything about teaching my child. And little they know
yeah.
when I start opening my mouth, they're like, oh, okay, she knows the things. Okay.
Right, right, right.
Right.
So that's what happened. I mean, it's the same thing. I started allowing people to just, trust me based on how I would deliver things.
Mm,
Not based on the credentials I had, because at that time I didn't even have a bachelor's degree. I wasn't even a graduate in college back then.
yeah.
And I didn't finish college even until now. But for me, that's where the fire just lit up and burned brighter. I started realizing, oh man, I can transform the lives of people inside a company. And I've been training people since then, like 2015. I remember that I was training people 3 times my age, and I see them at first trying to doubt me, but then eventually listening and getting transformation.
Mm. So
And
like working with that company, how long did you stay in that company before you decided, okay, I
five
want to
years,
start?
I
Oh,
stayed for
5 years.
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it took me 5 years, but then at the latter parts of my stay, I already was trying to explore. Like in the first 3 to 4 years, I wasn't even thinking of like getting outside. I was just thinking of trying to save and save and save. I didn't know how to save.
Didn't work
But
out.
then what's that?
The saving didn't work out.
It didn't work out. I mean, like, you know what? This is pretty tough. Like I thought I was gonna be here for 6 months only and get back to school full time so I could pay for my tuition, because that was the main motivator. Like I needed to help my mom to bring myself to school.
Mm.
So I was bringing myself to school. That's why I knew the value of time back then. And that's when it hit me. I said, you know what? I don't think it's working out. I want to try something. I want to try influencing more people outside and see how it goes. So my first customers were actually my students inside the company.
Okay.
Yeah. So and the corporate world gave me a big boost, because
It would
if
have.
I had not been in that corporate world, I wouldn't be able to know the things that I know right now. So a lot of people say, hey, you know what? You don't need to be an employee. I think that's stupid. Being an
So
employee teaches
would
you
you
a
not
lot of
change
things.
anything like through that journey? Would you not change anything or would you have done something different?
Good question. If I were given a choice, I would have stayed longer inside the corporate.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And it's pretty, people would say, what? No, you're bluffing. I'm not, because I feel like, to be honest, there are certain moments where I would just want to go back inside for the sake of learning.
Learning more, hey?
Learning more. That was free learning. I was part of a multi-million dollar company,
Mm,
right? And they're earning billions per year. And I know that it's something that I could have learned for free when I was inside,
true.
right? And that's why, going back to what I said earlier, employees don't understand it, that they are simply being paid there to learn,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Because it becomes a terrible word nowadays, where people think that being an employee sucks, because being an entrepreneur is so glorified. No, you got to be an entrepreneur. Everyone has to be an entrepreneur. But hey, what is an entrepreneur? It's basically someone who knows how to take risks, but calculated risks. And you will
Mm.
never have that kind of intelligence. You will never have that kind of, I guess, experience if you're not in an area or a position where you're allowed to grow and still learn from it.
And that's the thing about entrepreneurs, though. Like people think the title entrepreneur and that's it. Like they don't. I won't say they don't. Or some people they don't really look into the whole process of growing as an entrepreneur. It's more of
Yeah.
that's it. I've got a business and that's it, right? So when you left the company, what got you to branch out into learning more from people locally or internationally?
Okay. Um, well, I've been following a mentor, of course, and this mentor of mine really taught me to 10x, and to really just, when the question is who's your market, it changed from having a certain niche to being planet Earth. Like planet Earth is your market, meaning, which is why my mission and vision right now is to influence, empower, and activate 8 billion lives, one person at a time. That's the entire world.
Hmm.
And it's a massive transformative purpose. It's something that I know, an MTP. It's something that I know is pretty much realistically impossible, right? But what is realistic anyway? Realistic is something that is already there. So when I set a goal and I set a target, I know I was influenced myself to think big and to reach out to planet Earth. Not just this region, not just this country, but planet Earth. I know I can do more. And I know it's something that has been planted inside of me to literally just bring the light that I have and just bring it to as much people as I can. So
So
mentors
this
really play a
burning
big role in
desire
it.
to learn, was it from yourself, or was it, brought in by your mom because your mom's an educator? Was it something that was within you, or did someone encourage you to learn?
Yeah, I'm glad you remember. My mom's an educator. Yeah, she is. um, so my mom really did a good job raising me and really wanting me to do good back when I was in school. Um, and I always had that curiosity. I fell in love with books at an early age. Always love, I memorized the dinosaurs and the animals and the snakes and the reptiles.
Do you
Those
still
things. But
remember them?
I think I do some of them, right? But I think curiosity really plays a big role. At a young age, I was blessed enough to have that freedom to be curious.
Mm,
And curiosity, it kills the cat, but it also gives you the right research skills. So for me, when I have something that I'm not 100% sure about, there's that inclination for me to just really find out more about it. So
okay.
I think you're right. It was ingrained in me, but a big part of that was also my personal choice to surround myself with people who always wanted more.
At a young
And the,
age.
at a young age. And yeah, books really played a role. So there's this one book, a small book. It's called Being the Very Best That You Could Be. And I was in high school back then when I was reading that book, but the book was about corporate people and business people wanting more. So I couldn't relate back then, but for some weird reason, I was enjoying reading the book. I felt like, yeah, this was about me. And he's a local mentor, a speaker here in the Philippines. His name is Francis Kong, and reading that book really transformed my life. So I started searching more and more and more, and started learning from people outside of the country and learning people inside of the country. So it was just more of a habit of learning and more of a habit of wanting to know more out there.
So
So
your
it's getting that
fascination
knowledge.
of the what
Yeah,
ifs, isn't it? The fascination of what ifs. What if, I've done something different for my business or for myself? What if I've done this way? What if whatever success somebody has works for me? Isn't it? It's all that
correct.
question. Like a
Yeah,
lot of people, like even growing up with teaching, a lot of people, a lot of students, the more
yeah,
you ask questions, sometimes it is reflected incorrectly as a rebel or a disruptor of the room. But it depends on how you look at it, because I used to ask a lot of questions myself, and because I ask a lot of questions, people think that I'm the problem, I'm a disruptor, but it's actually more of the curiosity, as you say,
yeah.
and just wanting to learn, like, how does this work? How can I use that knowledge? How can I incorporate it? I want to understand how things work so that I can use it for myself. But
Correct.
yeah, it's more of how you interpret it, and it's not being afraid to ask that question of how and why.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem with a lot of the education system. Like, um, well, it's a case to case basis, but I think most people, they always try to shut people up when it comes to
it's
questions.
it's teaching you how to be a follower rather than a leader, I think, schools.
Yeah, or rather than being someone who's just openly curious about things.
Mm,
I mean, there's a difference between being curious and just being obnoxious, right? Like you just want to ask everything even though you know the answer to it.
yeah.
Um, but being genuinely curious about life and about how things work, I think that plays a big role to success. If you want to be a great entrepreneur, curiosity has to be there because curiosity breeds questions. So
Absolutely.
curiosity breeds questions. If you are curious, you're gonna keep on asking. And the key to getting answers in life is by asking the right questions.
That's
So if
right.
you want the right solutions, you better start creating the right problems by asking the right questions. And entrepreneurs are problem solvers, which means that if you want to solve more problems, then you probably might want to enhance or hone and sharpen your questioning skills. Even in
Abs-
sales, it's all
yeah.
about questions. It's not about pitch. It's not about the product. It's not about who's known more. Branding and marketing, they play a role, but at the actual sales conversation, it's about asking the right questions.
And not giving up though. Like if somebody can't answer a question or can't help you, it's finding different ways, isn't it? It's trying to figure it out for yourself or trying to find other ways from or advice from other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in my team right now, there's a rule that we have. You're not allowed to say, I don't know.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
You're not
I'm
allowed to
like,
say, I
I
don't know.
don't
Like,
want to hear it. Like
yeah,
ask
you're
a
not
different
allowed to say, I don't
question.
know. And the only answer that you're allowed to say is, here's the answer, or let me find out.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. I tell my students, like, I don't understand it. I don't understand what you just said. I don't know. It's not in my vocabulary. I don't understand it.
Right, right. And if it's something that they really don't understand, like for example, they don't understand your question, then they also need to learn how to seek help. Like, help me understand.
Yes,
Help me know
exactly.
more about it.
Yeah. All right. So for a solopreneur or somebody that's in an entrepreneur business and is growing,
Mhm.
how do they find the right mentor or the right coach? Like,
Oh, interesting.
what would your advice be, considering you've touched base with so many people?
Yeah. Okay. So first off, if you're a solopreneur, you need
Because
to know.
it's such a scary thing to do. Like I've never had a coach before, and I'm diving
Yeah.
into this whole thing about having someone on board and helping me. How do they, or how would you advise someone to look for a particular person that would suit them? Like what would they be looking for?
Yeah. People would have certain wavelengths, right? Like,
Yeah.
the number one thing that you have to look for is really chemistry.
Yes.
And if you're gonna be looking for a coach or someone that you're gonna be following, it's not always gonna feel good. Don't just look for a mentor that is giving you something that you want to hear, or a coach that's just giving you things that you want to hear. But you have to be willing to open yourself up to people who are willing to say things that you don't want to hear. Um, quick example is, of course, Grant, right? Grant has influenced my life in a certain way in terms of the 10x rule. And I hated the guy. Like, first time I was forced to watch his video because of a certain module that I had in the company. That's how it
Ah,
started. That's how it
okay.
started. So they
Okay,
said, "Hey, Josh,
interesting.
put up a sales module, and you're gonna base it from Grant's videos." Like, who's Grant? This one, okay. And then I want you to teach it to everyone in the company. It's like, this guy's obnoxious. He's so loud. And I
That's
realized
interesting you saying that.
yeah, I know. And I was hating on him because it was a reflection of me. And I wasn't realizing, like, oh man, the reason why I hated it because he was spitting facts.
Mm.
He was spitting facts. He was talking about me not thinking big enough. And then it got into me. And finally I absorbed it. So, and then it aligned with my values. And I realized, oh yeah, this is what I believe in. So one of the best things that you really have to ask yourself first is, before you seek coaches or mentors, what are your values? What are the things that you value? And does it go in line with what that coach or mentor values?
But the thing is, you didn't just stop there, though. You still continued learning from other people because you
I
recommended
did.
Bob Proctor to me back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I did. I mean, Grant was more for the mindset and the sales, and then I started learning from other people, like
Mm.
Tony Robbins for leadership, speaks well about how he coaches people, right? And then I started learning from other people in terms of marketing. So there are certain strengths, and then I have my pastors for spiritual guidance, right? So it depends on what area in life you want to be coached on. So it's not okay. He's just gonna coach me in every area of my life. I think that's quite impossible, because that person, it's quite impossible for a single person to know everything and how to handle things. There's always a forte. There's always, like, okay, what's the expertise?
Yeah, but it's
What is
also
this
good to
person?
have like somebody else see it from their point of view, which the
Yeah,
other coach might not see.
yeah, same thing, same thing. Oh, but there's a bit for me. There's a bit of danger in what you said there, because if you try to get two people who share the same stuff or who talk about the same thing but have different perspectives, you'll be confused. So, for me personally, there is no right or wrong. There's just one decision, and then you make it right. I
Yes.
mean,
No, that's true.
ethically speaking, though, you would know if it's wrong already. But The point there is like you just gotta commit on one and make it right.
Mm, true.
So like for example, whether you're
Like
following
being a
Gary Vee,
musician, like being a musician, you get different, let's say, professors to see how your
yeah,
performance is. And
yeah,
one may evaluate it in a certain way, and then
right,
another may also evaluate it their own method or their own
sure,
way. But as the
yeah,
performer, as your solo being, you make the decision on what works for you from both coaches.
okay, yeah, makes sense exactly. So yeah, so there's a time when you have to find the middle ground, right?
Yeah.
Where's the middle part here? For example, if you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, and then you listen to Grant Cardone, they speak about the different things, right? They're both people of influence, but Gary Vaynerchuk talks about giving value. Talks about and then Grant talks about, hey, no, uh, you sell, you sell, right? So one tells you to it's okay to wait for 30 years before you can actually sell it. The other talks about, no, you don't need to wait for 30 minutes. You got to sell it now. So you'll be confused if you listen to a lot of people.
Mm.
Pick some and then just decide to follow them. If it matches your values and it works for you, then continue. It doesn't mean that you're closing your doors from other learnings. It's just that this is what I'm committing to learning at the moment, and I'll focus on it. I think the problem with a lot of people is they just try to make a salad out of their learning. I'll just mix it all together. I mean, it
Yeah.
looks good, but salad's nice. I love salad, right? But in the real world, man, it gets confusing if you listen to different people with different perspectives all the time.
Yeah, but it's also like creating that skill of,
Discernment,
understanding what works for you, right?
correct.
It's like
It's a
religion.
skill of discernment, but
Mm.
unfortunately, not everyone has that skill early on.
Yeah, exactly,
Which is
exactly.
why, I tried this and then I tried this. So the thing is, they never try anything long enough. That's the problem.
Mm.
So they don't try something long enough, and they end up thinking that nothing works, right? Which is why persistence, grit, these are the very principles that really helps an entrepreneur go to the next level. If we're only willing to do things, even though it might seem like it's insanity because it doesn't give us the results that we thought we would get, well, what if it just really took longer? Right? Like,
Mm.
and this is where it has to really begin. You have to make the decision of going all in, even if the results won't show. Are you willing to do it, even if, man, I'm not seeing any results? And the best way for you to keep going is by looking for those people who have also taken a long time in the process. So you won't just be looking at those people who are 9 years old, 20 years old, or even 15-year-olds, but they're like freaking rich and driving Lambos, because we see that everywhere on social, right? And you get tempted to think that, hey, it's supposed to happen to me as well. It can happen to you, but your path is different. And it's all about running your own race. You don't run someone else's race.
But it's also the
You run your own
discipline.
race.
It's like, people tend to just do it one day and they think, oh, why is it not working
Correct.
for me? It's
Correct.
that discipline of persistence that as we say, in order to reach where we're at, because no one creates success overnight. Like there's the consistency, as we always see and we do, in order to reach that success that we want.
100%. I agree with that, Lorraine. Yeah.
Mm. So, with your lifestyle being so busy and your growth being exponentially huge and getting larger, what would
Yeah.
your advice be in terms of how you make that happen? How you make that all work? Having a family, having a whole troop of kids, having that whole business. How do you make it work?
Yeah. Okay. So for those people who don't know, like, um, I have 5 amazing boys, married to an amazing wife, and I'm running this training company. It's called VoiceBox. Number one is it's very tough.
Because
It's so tough.
you're replying my text at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's like what, 6 hours, 5 hours, behind time. You guys are 5 hours
2
behind
hours
me.
behind. Yeah. So it's
Oh,
probably
two
like
hours.
3.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, going back to my roots, Lorraine, I think a big part of it was really having no choice but just to be disciplined in school. That's number one. And at work. So the experience that I had back then really paved the way to where I am right now. Sleeping for 3 hours every single day for 5 years.
Do
And
you take
every single
naps
time,
during the day?
yeah, I do. I do take naps. So my real sleep was like 3 to 4 hours. 5 hours was already a blessing. So I had 3 hours of average sleep time for the past 5 years of coming from the corporate world. And what it did to me was really discipline my time. Like whenever I had breaks, I had a 15-minute break and I had to log in break, right? I would not waste a single minute of me not sleeping. And I would sleep under my table, under my desk. And
Okay.
there were times when my clients would just find me because I'm supposed to be on the phone. They'd find me napping while speaking to a customer. It went that far, Lorraine. Like there were moments when like I would just wake up and like the customer's asking, "Hello, are you still there?"
All
I was
right.
like, yeah, 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 yeah. So what you're saying was, and then I had to go back to my notes. Like, what was this? Yeah, I mean, I didn't get you back. Would you repeat what you said, please?
Yeah.
The line was
Wow.
pretty big. The line was cutting in and out. I couldn't hear what you said over the past few. I've been speaking for 5 minutes. Were you listening? And I was like, I was asleep for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That was long.
I didn't think it was 5 minutes. I think it was just a few, like maybe a minute was the
Seconds.
max.
Yeah.
But I had
Yeah.
like mini naps. I had mini naps because I was so sleepy. But then I had teammates who were looking out for me because I was the youngest. I was 18. And they're like,
Ah,
Josh, you okay? And they were like
yeah.
my, mom figures back then in the office. And
Right.
but that trained me, that disciplined me to value time. That disciplined me to really get out of it because it was painful. I didn't want that life. I
Mm.
mean, I'm grateful for it. So grateful for it. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. But that experience gave me pain. And that pain catapulted me to find a way to get out of it.
Mm.
Which is why I think if people don't experience pain, they'd never get out of their situation. Just like the frog that's being boiled without them knowing that they're being boiled. You know that
Yeah.
analogy, right?
No.
So just try to imagine a frog. You put a live frog. I don't know it's a frog, but just imagine it's a frog, right? You put a live frog in boiling water. That frog would immediately jump, right? Jump
Yes.
out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it, right? But try to put a frog and just try to put it in normal temperature water, but then boil it gently without it knowing it's being boiled already,
Ah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of people that they don't even recognize the pain that they're in. But what's important is they have to learn to see the pain in their situation for them to get out of it. And that's why now at my situation, I know that there will be tougher days ahead. But if I was able to overcome what I did in the past, I know God's going to break me through anything that I'm going to experience in the future, which goes back to the faith that I built over the years. And I
Mm.
think that played a big, important role in it as well, Lorraine.
Yeah. It's finding that balance as well, isn't it? Like
Mhm.
things do change, but it's also working around it and finding that new balance as you continue to grow as well.
Correct. 100%. Yeah.
Mm.
Grant says there's
Well,
no balance though. He says like, you don't need balance, you have abundance in everything. Which is for me, that made sense for me. It's like, yeah, balance, but and then he
you
kept
look,
telling,
you understand yourself more, right? It's like we're
yeah,
we're not Grant. Like everyone's different.
yeah,
So you know your own
yeah.
balance, you know your own core, you know how you work. Like for me, there were times where I'm just so tired I would fall asleep while driving, like on the wheel. And like you falling asleep while you were talking with your clients, I would fall asleep while driving, like literally
Oh,
with my
that
eyes
yours is
closed. Like that
dangerous.
was like,
Yours
yeah,
is
that's
yours is
dangerous.
dangerous.
that is dangerous. So I'm like, all right, I need to figure out how I can, work around this because this is not working. It's really dangerous. So
Correct.
it's
So I
it's
mean, I
for
don't think
me,
that's
it's mini
balance. I think that's
naps.
you being abundant. Like that's you trying to maximize your critical thinking that, hey, you know what? I want to acknowledge that this is not good. Because people
Ye-
don't acknowledge it all the time that they're not
Yeah.
in a good situation. Some of them are in denial. because they
Yeah.
don't have an option, or they choose to believe that they don't have an option.
Absolutely. They put that barrier so that, you know, there's no way of them
Right.
getting out of it per se, because they
Correct.
have that barrier that prevents them from moving on.
Yes, you're 100% right.
Now, last question. What would you advise yourself, your 18-year-old self, like right now?
Wow. I like being interviewed, Lorraine. I miss this.
You should do it more often.
I miss this. I miss podcasts. I'm gonna relaunch mine.
Yes, you
Okay.
should.
Well, here's what I would say my 18-year-old self. It makes me think. It makes me think.
Yeah.
I don't want to just say a generic answer. But okay, what would I say my 18-year-old self? Okay. Here's what I would say. Firstly, you got to understand that what you are experiencing right now is nowhere compared to what you're going to be experiencing in the future. So I want to give you hope that there's more. There's definitely more. But with more blessings comes more challenges. And you have to understand that you're going to go through a lot of shit in your life. There will be people that you think are going to be trustworthy but aren't. There will be people that you're going to try to hope on and you're going to try to cling on to them, but eventually they would be leaving you behind. But that's normal. And there will be times when you're going to feel like you're going to quit. And there's going to be a lot more of those, probably every day. But if you're committed and you do whatever it takes, you're going to find it. You're going to find that success is just there around the corner. And you got to understand that success is not you trying to achieve a certain destination. It's you being who you are. And that's your identity. So you got to understand, you hold on to where you are right now, enjoy the process of learning, focus more into building yourself, and just let life happen to you. That's what I would say myself.
Wow. Wow, good job. Good job. Now, what about advice to all these solopreneurs and growing entrepreneurs out there? Like, what would your biggest advice?
Find your purpose. You got to find your purpose. Seems cheesy to some people, but for me, you got to understand why you're here in this world. An entrepreneur is a change maker. You got to create a dent in this world. Don't call yourself an entrepreneur if you're not going to share anything to this world. An entrepreneur is someone who knows that he or she is going to make a massive impact in this world. That's what a real entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur, because if you didn't want to be an entrepreneur, then you could just be by yourself, right? And even if you call yourself a solopreneur right now, you can't stay a solopreneur. And that's why it's a solopreneur to entrepreneur, because if you're just by yourself and you're not creating a bigger impact, listen, you have more potential inside of you. What you think you're capable of doing, or what you think where you're at right now, is nowhere compared to what you can actually do. You're just in probably 0.001% of what your true potential is. And you're nowhere compared to where you're supposed to be. But you got to understand that it's you understanding that you're hustling and you're grinding not to prove anything to anyone or not to become something. But the reason why you're hustling and you're grinding, it's because of you knowing who you are. So you're not doing it to prove, you're not doing it to be, but you're doing it simply because you are. Success is not a destination, it's an identity. And for me personally, you got to understand why you were created in this world. And it goes back to me understanding my faith. Who do you think you are in this world? What do you think is the purpose that God has given you in this world? What do you think is the God-given mission and vision that you have in your heart and it's been planted in you that keeps you awake at night and wakes you up early in the morning? That's what you should know.
Amazing. Well, thanks for that. I hope that all of you got that out there. And it is true that you got to know your purpose in terms of what you want to do for yourself, both yourself and your business. Well, Josh, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. And I love this chat. I love our chats that we always have.
We're definitely going to stay in touch, Lorraine.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.